Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Iron Squid and this matchup right here between mouz.mana. He is in the green trunks and he is playing Protoss to the east of the Terminus versus his opponent. It is SlayerSMMA. He is in the blue trunks playing Terran to the west.
And MMA versus mouz.mana. This is going to be a fantastic series. Even if it finishes 2-0, I'm sure we're going to see two fantastically high-skilled games here.
Oh, yeah.
By, I was going to say two of the best players in the world, but of course, Mana being one of the best PVTs, if not the best in Europe. And he's shown it. He's beaten Korean Terrans before in the IPL show matches or whatever that series was called.
Fight Club.
I don't know what it was called. It was like
Fight
King of the
Club.
Hill. Fight Club,
yep,
King
Fight
of the Hill,
Club.
Fight Club.
But of course, the first rule of Fight Club is that we do not talk about the Fight Club.
Whoops, never mind. MMA though, oh, man, this guy is just so fantastically good. He's amazing. He's just so fast. He's aggressive. His macro never slips up. He never, gets supply blocked. His mechanics are fantastic. He's just such an all-round player. There's players and Terran players that have weaknesses. Maybe they're too predictable. Maybe their mechanics aren't as strong. But MMA just isn't a weakness of him.
Now, he is called the son of Boxer for a very, very good reason. He plays in the way that you would have expected to see Boxer play in its prime in his fantastic Brood War days. Refinery coming down here for MMA, so he's not going gasless, and he's most likely going to start to apply some pressure from the get-go.
Yeah, Terminus is actually a very nice map for Protoss versus Terran here. They do have the ease of access towards that third base. We actually do see Nexus first coming down here by Mana, but as you said, gas has come down for MMA, and it was after the barracks, not before. So he could actually, there's a couple of options. He can go for a 1-1-1, which is not as viable here, a very big open map. He can go Reaper Expand, and then of course can go multiple barracks pressure here too.
Yeah, and it most likely is going to be Reaper Expand. We've got Tech Lab coming down pretty much immediately here, unless we see some weird, funky Marauder start. But yeah, most likely will be a Reaper. Nice little choice there. I like the fact that Slayers are one of these teams that really do love to use Reapers, because they're a great little unit, but sadly underutilized.
Yeah, and the Reaper actually, he could actually throw down a bunker just outside the Nexus on the natural, and there's nothing there scouting for it unless this probe is going to go down and just check for it out. And that's, something that could be designed here for MMA to use against Protoss, which 9 times out of 10 are going to be going Nexus first on such a big map like this.
Yeah, it has, well, bunker probably won't end up going down here as he decided to go all the way into the main. He scouts the 2 gateways, which is very, very standard for this kind of setup. If you go Nexus first, you've got to play a bit of catch-up, because otherwise you will end up with too few units to deal with any kind of early game pressure. So you generally build 2 gateways after that. And Mana's also got this probe on top of the SCV now, so it's not going to be able to build anything. But the Reaper can come in and do a little bit of damage here and there.
Yeah, Reaper picked up the scouting probe of Mana, so unfortunately for Mana, doesn't get the scout of the natural there. Even though you can presume that's going to happen, he doesn't know for sure. He's going to put the bunker down now. Yeah, the bunker's coming down. The Zealot's about to finish, though. The Zealot can get kited here, and he can easily pull back the SCV and then start building again. So I think he's going to have to pull probes here. Yeah,
he very well might. The Zealot's now out of the way, and now we've got MMA just trying to inflict some damage here with this Reaper. Already taken 3 kills, 4 kills coming in very soon here. There we go, and can he get out of there? He can! That's a great start here for MMA, and now he's even going to start working on the Zealot, and he can kill it. Wow, Mana realizes that and has got to get back there. He does stop the bunker from going up at least, but that was more than worth it.
Yeah, he had 2 options there. He could go in the main and get probe kills, or he could have tried to get that bunker down. And I like the option, the choice he chose there to get that Reaper in the main. 4 kills, didn't really do any damage to the Zealot, but he didn't want to take a risk either, because he knew the Stalkers were, of course, a sure follow-up from the Zealot. Now for MMA, he's still on that 1 gas, of course, and it looks like he's thrown down the second barracks and does have Stim being researched and has his own expansion up. MMA didn't really do enough early on with that Reaper, and we actually already see, Mana had a significant probe lead, and it is also working on the structural debris in the back, so even though he lost 4 probes, that's actually, not that big of a thing.
Yeah, I suppose it isn't. It is a nice start for MMA one way or the other. You generally don't even expect to get 4 probe kills with a Reaper, but it was good. But as you said, Protoss, man. Nexus with double chrono boost, pumping out probes, you can so easily get a nice lead there. But with the Orbital Command following up, you are also having to contend with mules. So things are not particularly dire for MMA either. I also noticed that MMA actually put down a pretty damn early engineering bay to go for the +1.
Yeah, he's been doing this a lot recently, actually, where he just, because he starts it so incredibly early, it helps defend against mid-game pushes. For example, if a 6 or 7 gate was a follow-up to this Nexus first, it's going to arrive at 8 minutes, maybe 8:30. And the +1's done by that time, so it actually gives him a lot of defensive capabilities in crushing the Zealots as they come into the bunkers. So that's actually a really nice thing, and also he doesn't need to invest in double engineering bay earlier on or in the mid stages, because it's already 1-1. It's going to finish at the same time that the double engineering bay would have finished it. So it's actually a nice addition. Of course, takes away from initial units around the 5 to 6 minute mark, but he doesn't need them at that point. So it's actually a very nice thing there. We do see Mana actually go for the robust facility and extra gateways. He may actually decide to go for Colossus here in a defensive stance, because he is going to try to take a third base, and defensive Colossus on this map is actually very strong, as of course, I mean, if he tries to punish a third base, he has to walk into Colossus into a choke point, which is never good.
No, it isn't. And no back path on this version of Terminus there, with the destructible debris just preventing that. But it doesn't really hold back either player for that long. You know, that's only really a big pain in the arse for Zerg. So this is a good version of the map for this PvT matchup. And in the meantime, what have we got from SlayerSMMA, man? It's basically Seller versus Tosh here. They're both, needless to say, playing on a US server because it's EU and Korea. So they both pretty much have the same lag. It's nice and fair. But we have MMA building this starport here.
And we have no third base from MMA. MMA knows that this is a Protoss map where they do like to go for a third base. He actually scans the natural, sees a pylon, and sees probes moving to the natural. So, I mean, saw a probe going to the third base. He knows that's down there. He has an option. Does he throw down the third base now? Or does he throw down additional barracks and just go for multi-pronged harassment in the main, natural, and third base? And he has to make his choice up now, and it looks like he is actually just going to go down and throw the third base down. But you can see how far behind he actually is in terms of probes. Well, not really probes, but saturation and capability, because as soon as Mana decides to chrono boost probes again, that's a third base saturated. No third base has actually come down for MMA. What's he doing? Where did that SCV go? Okay, there it is again.
Yeah, it's very, very light in comparison. I mean, that Nexus is about to finish there, and the command center only just started. We've got MMA now moving across the map. He does have 2 medevacs, so he could start with that multi-prong, and he even has the infamous scouting factory there just so that he can see up cliffs and so on and so forth. But Mana was actively scouting ahead and making sure that he knew where his opponent was and what the size of the force was that was coming at him. He does have this defensive Colossus on its way up. There is no real way for MMA to actually deal with that right now.
Yeah, MMA's at 1-1, which is of course great, but with Force Fields and a Colossus out, the Marines are going to die incredibly fast. Where is the Colossus, though? Where is it?
It's not up yet. It's not up yet. There's only a couple of seconds. He's still got to wait for it, and unfortunately, he takes some damage in the process. But now with the Colossus up and most of these guys trapped behind Force Fields, he should be okay here.
MMA making a little bit of a mistake in the background, but I'll talk about that now. But yeah, with the Colossus up, look at that. It just does so much damage to Marines. They are doing a bigger damage, taking off all the sentries there, but he has to fall back, and he needed to do more damage than that there, considering how late his third base actually is. But you know, reinforcements coming through, but Colossus will easily shut this down. Yeah,
especially with an Immortal backing it up. I'd say, hey, well, maybe the Marauders smash their way through the Stalker line, as they have a tendency to do, but yeah, with the Colossus, that's just not going to happen. And all of those medevacs got shot down as well, which is really good for Mana. That shuts down drop capability for a while, and that's perhaps the most important thing, because what could have happened in the background here is that he starts to get dropped, he's spread across 3 bases, the immobility of his forces end up being a massive handicap.
And the mistakes of MMA that I noticed, he hasn't started 2-2, and he actually had a very late second engineering bay and armory. And he's only just now going to start those upgrades, and actually doesn't even have enough gas because of the medivacs he lost. He's had to build a second starport because he's playing against Colossus. He has to rebuild the medivacs, so his, you know, he's really messed up his build now because of that little push there that didn't do anything. Mana now throwing down 4 additional gateways, going to throw him up to a total of 9 gateways with an established third base. Drop is coming to the main base, but Mana's already there. This is actually, you know, going so smoothly here for MouzMana.
Yeah, there's actually a drop coming into the main as well, and he's almost ready to actually intercept that. Warps in there now, is going for it, but he's going to lose a Forge, which is a nice little start there for MMA, who also stims forward, and it's only Stalkers there, so these Marauders dealing significant damage.
Yeah, as I say, it's going smoothly for Mana. He loses a Forge and a bunch of Stalkers, so not the best timing on that statement, but you know, he can easily rebuild the Forge now. He's going to push this back, but that drop was actually pretty nice from MMA, slowing down Mana a little bit. As you can see, MMA has taken the supply lead, is up the barracks count now, and has a decent force. Let's have a look at the medevac count. Only at 3, though, because he has to produce Vikings 3 at a time here, because the Colossus will just get too incredibly high, and then the count will just smash everything he has. But the second Forge is now coming down, but upgrades are actually going to be incredibly far behind for Mana here.
Yes, definitely.
Which is the advantage which MMA has, who's pushing towards that 2-2, which is not that far away from finishing.
Yeah, that's what I really like about how he dealt with that. You know, he was able to snipe off a Forge and slow his opponent down so much. But there is Templar Archives on the way up, and there is Charge. I mean, what I would actually like to see here, if, of course, Mana realizes that his opponent has a big upgrade advantage, which he as soon as that 2-2 clicks in and the Observer sees that, he's going to be like, oh dear, this is looking stressful. Maybe he actually goes for Storm, which is exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, he is. The drop on the third base is going to get shut down here immediately. Mana, is just... All he has to do right now is sit and don't take damage versus drops. He's adding on a cannon, because if he doesn't take damage versus drops, he's going to rush the 200 supply incredibly fast. He'll start to build that Death Ball of Colossus, Storm, you know, Gateway units. But, of course, upgrades are lacking here. MMA now, 2-2 is about to finish. He's looking for a push straight through the middle. So Mana's spread out, main, natural, and third. He's just going to surge through the natural here. And actually, as I say that, Mana pulls everything to the natural here, actually. And is just relying on cannons to defend these back bases. So this is actually not so bad. Mana actually not out of position here.
Yeah, I like the decision to do that, honestly. A couple of cannons is enough to deter a drop of a small amount. I mean, we only saw a single medevac drop go down there, and then it was that 2 medevac drop into the natural. Single medevac drop goes down very fast to those amount of cannons. So, a good decision. This very weird expansion here from MMA down in the corner. I mean, it's like you could not expand closer to Mana if you tried, but Mana's got no reason to be down there.
No, he hasn't. It will go unscouted this game, probably. This is going to be very tense. So 4 Colossus out. There's a lot of Vikings, though, and they're going to target down the Colossus. Storms are going to have to come in to defend this. Well,
that was a nice Storm, actually. It did wear down the Vikings significantly and did a lot of damage to those units at the front. It also allows Mana to reposition, gets another Storm right underneath those Vikings, and brings the Stalkers round to the right flank. So only a single Colossus fell thus far, and now the charging Zealots are right into it. Force field split is absolutely perfect, and Mana is throwing down right now on MMA, and there's still 2 Colossus up. He actually saved one on 2 HP with the Viking count now at 0, and Mana takes a massive momentum.
Oh man, this is like watching The Last Samurai as all the Zealots just kind of fly in and get shot down before they even get to the Marines there. Because the upgrades are just so strong that they just get shut down. But like you said, the actual Storms and the target fire of the Archon and Stalkers onto the Vikings, that was incredible there, which managed to keep the Colossus alive, which at the end there won the fight for Mana, who's now established in a 4th base, is still at 170 supply, but now once again the medevac count is only at 4. It could be higher, but there's only 2 Vikings, and Mana with 2 Colossus is in great shape.
He's about to get +2 as well. That's perhaps the most vital thing. He's about to kick in with +2 attack, which is going to equalize things so very nicely here, and takes a little bit of fire unnecessarily, I feel, from that missile turret, which may make that Colossus a little bit more vulnerable. Indeed, it's actually going to get down. Nice little flanking maneuver there by MMA. Storms go down to split this force up. MMA eating them from all sides, but he is able to get that nice concave, which brings the Colossus down. Does he have enough to deal with this, however? No, he does not. And Mana is able to clean up that army in the center as it's driven away and split into tiny little fragments.
Yeah, against this very Marauder heavy force here, the Zealot Archon's doing incredibly well. Marauders just cannot beat these Zealots down fast enough, and MMA had to go Marauder and Ghost heavy because of the Colossus there, especially losing the Vikings, but you know, mouz.mana is actually adapting his composition around what he's seeing, which is beautiful. He's now established the 4th base. Transfer is now across there. MMA's base in the bottom right has done nothing to him, and mouz.mana, best PvT in Europe. Yeah, this is why, guys. Look at this.
Yeah. This is why every engagement was so good for Mana. It really was. Even with MMA's speed, he got that great flank on the Colossus. But it doesn't matter because Mana has these amazing compositions. He always nails his storms, he always nails his force fields, and gets into great positions. And now he's just going to try and overwhelm the natural of MMA, who is going to be hard-pressed to hold this off with such a supply disadvantage. The Colossus comes in from the side again, not enough Vikings to bring that down, and is getting good arcs of fire on that ramp. The Zealots have been stopped for the moment. The upgrade advantage is pretty much evaporated. +2 now kicks in on the armor for Mana, and we're looking at a good hold here by MMA, but reinforcements will start streaming in so fast.
Yeah, pretty cost inefficient there for Mana to actually engage here, but it really doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
As he has 4 bases versus, what now, 2-ish? And the Zealots on the 3rd base doing so much damage to the SCVs as well. So Mana just making sure that MMA's beat down hard, where it's going to be too difficult to get back up.
Yeah, it's 35 SCVs now, 32. Oh man, this is grim. It really is. A mule falls down as if that will keep MMA in the game now, but there's going to be a second army following this up very shortly, and there's a good 2-minute gap here where Mana is going to have equal upgrades. In fact, he's going to probably get his +3 attack before his opponent is able to get +3 of his own. So things are looking really dire for MMA, honestly, and once again the fighting spirit is in play, but another force comes in. He's really not been able to bring this Colossus down fast enough. A storm goes down to try and impede the Vikings. A good hold coming in again from MMA, but all he can do is hold his main here, and that leaves his natural wide open.
Yeah, and then the 3rd base beneath that too, and there's no ghosts here to actually deal with the storms, and the Zealots are just proving to be a little bit too difficult. +3 attack is about to kick in here as well for mouz.mana, which will basically push MMA out of the game. Of course, the Zealot Stalkers just do way too much damage now. An
aggressive blink right there, and I'm afraid Vikings are not good against Stalkers. I am so sorry, MMA. And wow, Mana tears him to pieces. 45 supply and falling rapidly. MMA continues to fight as it is his way, but there is the GG. What a great start for Mana in this series.
Yeah, he just knows how to play this matchup so incredibly well, and despite MMA being 2-0, 4-1 in maps, has now dropped the first game here against Mana. Mana did have a bit of an early game advantage with that build order, going Nexus first versus Reaper Expand, but at the end of the day, he still picks up the win against MMA, a full-time professional StarCraft 2 player, and every time I cast Mana, I'm going to say it every time too, he's 18 years old, he's in school, he practices 4 or 5 hours a night, that's it. And then when exams come up, probably even less. This guy, and I'm going to say it again, is a future champion in any international event. Just, you know, it's just not yet happened, of course, because he's still in school.
Yeah, that's what's holding him back, and it's just he can do this part-time. I jelly, honestly. I'm little but jelly, but also I am in a state of admiration for a great game there by Mana. And MMA couldn't deal with it. He really didn't. He didn't get great engagements, and the harassment was shut down very well. He did get a nice attack here against that Forge, which really gave him a nice window. But unfortunately, upgrades don't really matter against Colossus, and they definitely don't matter against Storm. And that's what Mana realizes.
Yeah, really good play there from Mana. You know, a couple mistakes there from MMA, but he was always playing a little bit from behind, especially on a more Protoss-favored map too.
Yeah.
And he still, you know, now has map choice. He can play a map that's going to suit his style better, suit his practice resume as well. So I expect him to be choosing something that Mana wouldn't play more regularly and something that he would do. And we'll have to see what that's going to be.
Let's find out, folks. So we'll be back after this break. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Iron Squid in the series between SlayerSMMA, who is in the blue trunks playing Terran, to the west of Belshire Beach, versus his opponent, it is mouz.mana. He is in the green trunks and he is playing Protoss to the east.
This map is, of course, going to favor MMA more than Mana here. It's harder to establish a 3rd base as easy it is on Terminus for Mana, and even if he does get that 3rd base up and running, is now his main base is going to be a lot more exposed. It's a shorter distance map as well, and MMA practices a lot more on this map, I'm sure, because of his GSL playing schedule compared to Mana, who plays mostly on the ladder, to be honest, for his practice, and doesn't really play this map, of course, because it's not on the ladder.
Yeah, and he runs into it in tournaments every now and again, but Belshire actually did come into play for a while in Western tournaments and then rapidly fell out of favor honestly. So I don't know if Mana's really playing this a lot in the online tournaments that he often gets involved in, because, hey, it's a great way to actually make some money.
Yeah, it is. And, I mean, this map, I guess the reason why it fell out fast is because Zerg players are so kind of good on here. There's a lot of attack ways, and they can expand really easy here and deny third bases of a Protoss will tear an opponent. But in this matchup, it's a little bit similar. You know, it is harder for a Protoss player to safely defend a third base and a main base. But we'll see how this is going to play out. MMA so far hasn't taken gas, so it looks like he's just going to be going for a regular 1 barracks, gasless expansion play, unless he throws the twist in and decides to throw down additional barracks.
Yes, and the question is, does he try and do that? It wasn't really all that an aggressive opening from MMA previously. You might think, oh, Reaper Fast Expand, that's an aggressive opening. Well, yeah, it kind of is, but really you can expect to pull off a few workers. You know, you kill a few workers with the Reaper. It's not really for that. I mean, people often think that the idea is, oh, you get the Reaper first so you can harass. Yeah, it's on the mind of the person that has it, but it's also a case of map control and scouting. Yeah,
and then expanding behind it and being able to get Stim straight away.
Yep.
But this time around, he's obviously going to delay Stim quite a bit. We'll see what his follow-up's going to be from this after the command center goes down, whether he gets double gas immediately, whether he goes into double barracks. Meanwhile, though, Mana, on the other hand, is getting a second gas. It obviously gives him the potential to be aggressive with any tech build, if you want to go DTs, Blink, Robotics Facility, anything down there, but also can be just for a very straightforward Sentry expand.
Yeah, let's see if he decides to do that. Mana is known for being passive, even in this matchup. You know, he can get aggressive, but he is mostly a passive player. He will receive the attack that's coming at him. He lets his opponent come at him first, and he also actively scouts with observers to know what's coming, and he holds on to Xel'Naga Watchtowers, gets the warning, and then shuts that attack down, and he tries to do so in the most efficient manner possible, because he wants to be able to then have the option to counterattack, and if he can shut a Terran opponent down, and more importantly, pick off medevacs so there's no possibility of drop harassment, then he can come in with this crushing blow.
And what is Mana going to do? He's now at 140 gas. It looks like he's just going to expand. Mana isn't really a player to, like you said, to do anything early harass aggressive, because he can just play it to the late game and win at the late game like we just saw. So he's going to be expanding. But on the other hand, we do have double refinery coming down here for MMA, and then the second barracks from this. So it looks like MMA obviously wants to go into Stim pretty fast here. He may decide to throw the factory down into early starport, but because there's no Stim, there's no combat shields, is that obviously medevacs are going to be pretty useless. He may just go into a Banshee potentially from here, but we'll see. There's a lot of options still available for MMA.
Yeah, he's got a lot of flexibility. The factory now about halfway done here at the natural, and Mana just won't do anything from this point. He will tech, he will get his economy rolling nice and easy. It's a bit difficult to hold this natural because of the wide open ramp, but he's going to need a couple more sentries, really, in order to do that, but that would be making the assumption that MMA was actually going to push, and he's not. And Mana knows this now because he spotted the Marine count, he is aware of the bunker at the top there, and he's like, right, well, there's not going to be any ground push coming anytime soon, and at the moment, we're not seeing anything else coming in from... Ooh, MMA, there we go. What have we got? Starport coming up.
Yeah, it looks like he's just going to go for a Cloak Banshee build here, which is actually pretty good because it comes at a very, very awkward timing for Protoss players, because the Observer gets there, and as the Observer gets there, so does the Banshee in your base. So unless you build blindly 2 Observers, you're going to be in a bunch of trouble, which is what MMA is looking to do here with that gas that he went for that double gas so early on. And actually takes a third gas as well here, which may... I'm actually a little bit surprised by this. I guess he just wants to get down Tech Lab and Reactor pretty fast here. Or no, actually throws a Tech Lab onto the factory, so is going to be going for tanks behind this as well.
That's interesting, honestly. And that's even going to limit the number of Marines he can bring out, because he's mining a lot of gas, and he is saturated on his main there, but his natural nowhere close to being so. I'm intrigued to see how this goes, because this is potentially a 1Q111 from him, because after the Cloaked Banshee, he could then go for this tank follow-up.
Yeah, and he throws down double reactors onto the barracks, so it's like the evolved 111, as people have been calling it, the 222, where everything's like doubled up. So we'll see how this is going to come down now. Banshee's going to, of course, go and do a bunch of damage here. Tank production is going to keep going, and with a lot of Marines, tanks, and Banshees, this actually is still difficult, but not MMA, sorry. Mana actually has what is best against this coming. He already has the Robotics Bay about to finish up, can start. Colossus actually has a decent gateway counter about to be at 5 and a Forge coming, so he's going to have the equipment necessary, but it all comes down to this Banshee coming in, because look at where the starport is and where the Observer's going. It's not going to find it incredibly fast here, it's just going to scout the main base first, and the Banshee with Cloak is about to arrive in Mana's base.
Yeah, let's see what he can actually do with this. He's not going in for it just yet. Just going to hang around here and then wait and wait and wait. And now, in he goes with the Cloak Banshee. He's got a reasonable amount of Cloak energy here and can start to lay down some pain. And more to the point, the Colossus being built in the process means that you're not going to get any Observer out there either. There's no way for him to detect at this stage, which is causing a huge amount of problems for him. That Banshee's already got 5 kills, and he's had to oversaturate his natural mineral line here, and he can just keep going at it for the next 20 seconds, killing a probe with each volley here. Things not looking so pleasant. Now actually targeting down that Stalker just a little bit, so a little bit of a mistake there, I feel, by MMA, but this is already paid for itself. I mean, 13 probe kills now. That is pretty grim here for Mana. It's put him in a horrible spot. The Banshee will now finally die, but 37 probes versus 51 SCVs here. Yeah,
full base saturation here for MMA, because they're going for that Barracks Command Center, is able to hit that incredibly fast, and we do see the switch up now. The starports come off, the factories come off, so just has a couple of tanks. This push is going to be difficult, but the follow-up from this is going to be very normal. He's going to be working on Stim behind this, Medivac's coming out as well, and he's just going to be going for a very, very standard play, but this push is going to be quite stinging. As we can see, there's nothing really out. The single Colossus without Thermal Lance, well, for like 20 seconds, we'll be able to push it back eventually, but still, siege tanks are very good against Colossus because you can target them down so fast.
Yeah, that's true. The Banshee tries to go in again, doesn't really have what it needs in order to make that happen. Mana looking to push out and actually meet this in the middle, and I don't know, I'm not convinced about that. Obviously, he doesn't want the tanks to deploy, but that force is very small here from Mana. Yeah,
Mana has to be so careful with this force. You know, the Colossus can shred the majority of these Marines, but he really can't afford to lose much of this Protoss army. He's about to throw down the, well, the third base is up now, or soon to be up here for MMA, and we'll be able to expand behind this too. Stim now being on its way, as well as combat shields too, so even if MMA doesn't do damage here, he doesn't need to, because he has a very strong follow-up behind this with +1 now, second engineering bay, and also armory down too, so this is actually looking fine, and he's content with just sitting back and going into a more defensive style, especially because he sees that there's no expansion down at all, third expansion down for Mana.
Yeah, and his economic lead at this stage is just so significant. The size of it is massive. He is utterly comfortable in his position, having done tremendous damage. There's even another Banshee just working on things, and actually could take that Stalker out there. The Force of Mana is just going to return home now. He realizes, well, there's no base there for me to hit, and there's no point in me being here. I just opened myself up to being completely crushed at this stage, and I've got to play as defensively as I can to get back on the field. And this Banshee is an absolute nightmare here for Mana. It's picking off even more probes, which Mana certainly cannot afford, and finally it goes down. 68 SCVs to 38 probes, though.
Yeah, 20 probes have gone down in this game, and that's a lot. Just by 2 Banshees, that's a lot. Third base now going up. Bunkers and turrets being established too against this Colossus style, and he's going to hold a very solid and strong area now. As soon as his third base goes down there, Mana has to do damage, because he hasn't got a third base. He's not investing in a third base either, and he's actually throwing a lot of resources into his army here with the Twilight Cancer coming down so he can continue his upgrades, but oh god, this is going to be difficult for Mana.
It really is. I mean, Stim's just finished. Those force fields were less than ideal, to say the least. Even the Colossus actually taking fire from the missile turrets right there. The tanks are currently up, and Mana's walking into the Valley of the Damned right now, and will he be able to crush his way through? He takes out another tank, but there's a tank right there that stays alive under those force fields, and that just got thrown back hard.
Yeah, so now there's no army for Mana, there's no third base for Mana. He's only just about to hit 1-1 in upgrades, so there's only a single forge here, and his probes are down at 40, and MMA's at 67. MMA just controlling this game now, you know, really looking back on shape compared to that first game where a few mistakes were visible. But here he's actually doing fine. You know, he's working on 2-1 upgrades and can easily, has multiple options actually. Can take another base and plant down a fourth, because what really is Mana going to do? Or he can just build up now until roughly 160 supplies these upgrades finish, and then just go for a killing blow.
Yeah, and why not? Mana's so far behind economically, I see no reason for MMA to get impetuous. I really don't, because defenses and holds for Mana are his specialty, especially against Terran. He shouldn't have he has a shot, I guess, but he shouldn't really have a chance of catching up at this stage. MMA could just go for 200, get his upgrades up, and then go and crush Mana. There's even an SCV down here, actually, to try and deny an expansion, just in case Mana tries to sneak that in there.
Yeah, MMA's been very smart, scouting every single base. You know, he has a Marine in the bottom left, he has another Marine at the top right, sorry, and then knows about the SUV being in the bottom south side. So this is actually really good for him, and he decides, instead of attacking my opponent who's on 2 bases, why not just build a 4th base and, you know, transfer my main over to my 4th base shortly and just go to 200 supply, work on my upgrades, build a bigger army than he has, and win the game in a nice, easy manner, even without crossing the halfway line. And this actually may force Mana to just go for it. I mean, Mana can't really do anything here. He's trying to get upgrades, trying to get Storm out, but MMA's got a Ghost Academy now. He can start his Ghost production, which he is, and already has a couple out. So even the Storm's going to get shut down. The Viking count's going to kill the Colossus. So there's very, very little angles here that MouzMana can actually take to win the game.
Yeah, and we've now got MMA rolling towards a 3rd base. He doesn't want to allow a 3rd base to be established. I don't see Mana having a way of stopping that, and he barely has an army at this stage, whereas MMA is in the lead in so many different aspects now. There's the cancellation on the 3rd base. We've got a trio of ghosts here just to stop any kind of storm. We've got siege tanks there as well, so even then getting in range for storm would be difficult. Mana is in the worst spot he could possibly be in at this stage, and I don't see a way out of it for him.
Unfortunately not. I mean, he's now been forced onto 2 base. He throws down 4 additional gateways instead of expanding. He's like, alright, well, I guess I got to attack. And MMA's like, alright, come on then, bunkers ready.
Yeah, even having bunkers at that stage, and wow, gets a good shot on the tanks there. EMPs go off, and there's no good storm to follow this one up, and MMA's just legging it right into there, and runs right into a storm, and all credit to Mana, he did land that one quite nicely, and takes the ghosts out as well. So he holds onto 2 bases, but even with a hold like that, MMA can just, he's already back at 200, and he can just go and just throw wave after wave at Mana.
I mean, what exactly is he holding? You know, he's holding
exactly
2 bases which are almost mined out. When, you know, somebody is holding something, that means, okay, oh god, I've taken an early base, I've got to hold it to make sure that I can establish and keep this economy going. But, you know, MMA doesn't care that he's holding his natural at all here. And Mana's going to have to push out here. And this sick contain, which we're actually seeing by MMA, with a factory now on the higher vision, this is going to be almost, this is unbreakable. This is so difficult here for Mana, who has to land perfect storm, has to dodge the snipes. The Colossus needs to spray correctly onto the Marines. Oh dear.
And MMA's got all the time in the world to figure that out. He's even using the scouting factory to actually get some tank shelling. That is an army and a half camped out outside Mana's base. And how does Mana break it? He brings in a couple of additional Templar here, morphs them immediately into an Archon. His Templar counts at 5. He's up against 4 Ghosts, 10 Vikings. The composition is ideal, and he's just going to throw himself at it, because what choice does he have? Storm goes down on the right flank and in the center there as well. And the Storms are very nice, but really, what are you going to do? The Vikings land behind it, and there's the GG.
Yeah, nothing he can do there. Out-upgraded, out-armied, macros crazy. There's 2 extra command sets coming down in the background. +3 attack near didn't finish anyway. So even if he'd waited a little bit longer to try to muster a bit of a stronger army, +3's done, personal cloaking's done, and MMA just completely controlling that one-side victory.
Yeah, and it really was one-sided, and it's because of the Banshees. I don't think you can really claim victory for anything other than those damn Banshees, and a nice strategy on this map, obviously practiced out. The timing is just so awkward. It really is. It caught Mana at a time when he had 1 observer out. He's not the kind of guy to build a 2nd observer immediately. He's not Todd. Todd does that very often. He'll build 2 observers in a row, then maybe add on a 3rd. But he was going for Colossus. And it's like, right, well, do I cancel the Colossus, which is almost built, and maybe open myself up to an awkward attack? Bearing in mind my army's pretty small anyway. or do I let it complete and then build an observer and take a ton of damage in the process?
Yeah, it's a very difficult, little awkward build there that really hasn't been figured out correctly by Protoss players. Because you don't know if it's going to be double barracks added on, whether he goes directly into, you know, a regular +1 medivac push, or whether it's going to be this really awkward cloak banching. And unfortunately, therefore, Mana does drop the second game, but still all to play for going into the final map here, which of course is anybody's game.
Yeah, he got caught out pretty badly, but now it's his map choice, and he's not going to fall for the same trick twice, I would imagine. So I would hope that MMA has more in his arsenal than that. I'm sure he does, but he did lose quite convincingly in that first game to Mana, so Mana's still got a really good shot at this, and MMA is going to have to be very careful, and if that was his ace in the hole, well, we may see Mana actually take the 2-1 win. Let's see if that's possible. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Iron Squid and this matchup between SlayerSMMA in the Blue Trunks playing Terran to the southwest of Cloud Kingdom versus his opponent. It is mouz.mana. He is in the Green Trunks and he is playing Protoss to the northeast.
It's all to play for on Cloud Kingdom here. Any strategy can be deployed by anybody. It doesn't matter what you choose, as there's a large variety of styles that can be played here. It is a nice map actually for Terran versus Protoss. So we'll see how this goes down. Even though the third base is actually kind of far away for a Protoss player to take, the amazing thing with this map is that it's tight against the wall. So on the side of the natural and the main base, there's no room for medivacs to get in. And you can actually pinpoint specific areas to actually have your cannons, have your high Templar, where drops become almost useless. So you can actually sit really comfortable defending the front lines rather than worrying about the drops at the back.
Yeah, not to mention it makes another Banshee timer like that really awkward as well, because, you know, you then throw down the earlier forge and it's like, right, well, the Banshee can only really attack me from this angle. He has a cannon, you can't do a damn thing.
Yeah, and so, you know, he can already, if we do see a similar build from MMA, maybe Mana's going to be like, alright, well, you know, Banshees are not as good here, so maybe he's not going to follow up the Banshee. He can, you know, just work off that one observer again. Which he kind of has to. Building a blind second observer, it's so, you know, 75 gas taken away from what you're trying to do, almost a century there, so can't really afford to do that. But we do actually see the gas come down instead here for MMA. Once again, opens up his options, whether it be, you know, Reaper Expand, whether it be Barracks Aggression, or even teching straight up into a factory. And that's exactly what Mana sees and scouts now, and he's going to be thinking of these options and what's best to deal with that.
Yeah, it's been a good start here from Mana, but admittedly there was no real way for there not to be, unless Mana just forgot to scout entirely. No way that was going to be stopped, and he's even just going to park himself there until that Marine comes out saying, nope, you can't build a supply depot here. I don't want you to wall off, even if you were planning on that or not. Cybercore coming up for Mana. Gateway first this time around, not going for any risky business, especially on a smaller map, a two-player map. You can't really hide it all that well.
Oh, I really like what Mana's doing with his probe here. He doesn't really know exactly what to do, so it's taking a second gas just to be safe anyway, to get the sentry count high if any aggression does come. But the probe is hidden on the natural here, which is going to catch MMA by surprise here, because Mana's going to poke up. He's going to be like, alright, where's that gas gone? Did you throw down the reactor or tech lab onto this barracks? Or is that into the factory of what we're seeing here? So very shortly, Mana's going to go up and check that barracks, and he's going to already be like, alright, the factory's down. Okay, this is what I'm playing against.
Yeah, MMA even actually has two supply depots down here. It would need to quickly react to block that off. No Marine at the top to stop that scout coming in either. So sneaky business here from Mana, and here goes a hero probe. Pokes in, just finds absolutely nothing, goes back out again, and he only went a couple of feet to the left. So is he going to go for it? We shall find out shortly.
He just checked if there was an expansion down and then was like, alright, no. So the options now are narrowed down a little bit more, but he doesn't know exactly. If he just checks the barracks at the top, that's all he needs to do, but he doesn't want to lose the probe at the same time, because then he doesn't know if there is an expansion coming. We do actually see a robotics facility coming down really fast here, so it looks like Mana's going to be like, alright, well, if you're going to go for a factory or anything like that, I do have Zelnoga Tower, well, it doesn't anymore. So he's not really expecting like a two barracks play, because that's not really a used build anymore. It's very easy and easy to stop. We saw Pult actually use his build against Bling and got crushed 2-0. in assembly. But this time around, so he knows now, instead of, he's filtered the options down. He's like, all right, well, if there's no expansion, that means the gas is probably into a factory now. He doesn't know if it's Cloak Banshee, doesn't know if it's a 1-1-1, but he knows it's not a 1 barracks expansion play with or without gas. So right now, he's just going to get an observer out really fast, and actually can get those 2 observers now and be more in a defensive stance than he would have been without that single probe. So excellent probe scouting on that natural.
Yeah, it's still there, and it is proving so useful. And now the Nexus comes down here for Mana. A small little bit of pressure coming out here from SlayerSMMA. He takes control of the Selnaga Tower here. The question is, does he decide to push any further? Not a very good idea if he does, so I can't imagine that he will.
And the probe now is going to scout on the natural, the expansion too, so it's like a hero probe. Yep. So now he knows that it's not. It could have been a Cloak Banshee build, so he's getting the second observer, but it also could have been what we're seeing here, which is Marine Hellion Aggression. And actually, the observer in the center is going to pick up a big scout there and sees the units walking across.
Very, very handy indeed. Should be well prepared for this, but this is going to be a drop here as well. Another observer heading out in this direction, and it sees it. It knows what's coming. Can he respond in time? Because he's got to deal with the aggression here as well. It's trying to force a cancel here. Down come those Hellions, but Stalker's now moving in immediately to try and shut this down. How much damage will really be done by this, honestly? Not a huge amount. The Stalker's now going for this medevac. Will they be able to pick it off? No, they will not. And 5 workers killed there by MMA. Not too bad, but not as good as you would have hoped, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's kind of equalized the game a little bit, because both of them have an expansion down at roughly the same time, and Mana took an investment to defend. It looks like we saw, of course, MMA take an investment to do damage, and it kind of just neutralized everything here. But we do have now Mana in the main base with an observer, and sees, all right, there's a second gas just the second been taken, as he can click on it and see the gases remaining. He also sees now the barracks research in Stim, sees everything here, and is like, all right, well, now it's time to choose my strategy. And he's building a second Immortal here. I wonder if he's going to build a third one as well. This actually may be a push. Oh, actually, hold that thought. Hellions into the natural.
Yeah, looks to try and do that, and blocks them off just a little bit there. And only a single probe goes down there, so not too shabby. And did he reveal the Immortal? I don't know. Maybe he did.
No, I mean, I don't think he did, but I don't think it matters that much anyways, because usually you're going to get one just for safety Immortal net anyway, yeah. But he didn't know about the second and third coming. So I expect now mouz.mana to throw down additional gateways and now go for this kind of build that Protoss players have been doing recently, which has become really difficult to stop, is where it's like a 3 Immortal push with a bunch of gateway units. The good thing here is, of course, everything's been delayed in terms of expansions because of the aggression and counter-aggression early on, but still, in terms of tech and the parallel, the way that the game has moved out, is that +1 attack is still really early, despite the game time showing almost 10 minutes. So that +1 attack is going to be ready for this little push here, which is going to help out a lot, of course, with Stim 2, and Medivacs are out as well, but MMA deciding to drop here, Totalbiscuit, so he's actually going to lose 6 units from defending this.
Yeah, oh, I see the drop all the way over there. That's a big deal, and not only is it 6 units, but it's also a medevac, and in fact, there's only a single medevac with pretty low energy available to hold this off. There's an aggressive pylon in place here to start warping in units to get this aggression going. Now, this drop could definitely do damage. In fact, it's going to do less damage because he's dropped a single Marine here just to have a look around, so it's even going to do less damage than it would have. Hyper-aggressive pylon right into it, and this is looking like a really nice flank here by Mana. Let's see if he can actually crash his way through here. Loses a Stalker, shuts down the remaining of those forces. A quick evacuation, but down it goes. Nicely done there. There's still 3 Immortals there available, and it looks like MMA may have made a colossal mistake. We've got Mana now laying down on this natural expansion.
I can't believe MMA was out of position there. He really didn't expect this. The drop does come down in Mana's base here and is doing damage, but at the same time, MMA's lost his natural expansion ground. He could actually lose the command center too, and Mana, is he going to really pick up the 2-1 against MMA?
That would be an absolutely fantastic victory for him without question. He's able to get in there, he shuts down the tech lab, so no combat shield available there either. This drop is finally shut down. It has done a lot of damage, but they didn't stop the army that is now crashing down on the main of SlayerSMMA. There are still 3 Immortals alive. There are still sentries in that mix as well, and there is no expansion now for MMA anymore.
And Mana, losing a lot of economy and damage to actually this drop here. It goes into the natural steal, killing a bunch of pros. Pro's been pulled off by Mana too, who's having a hard time dealing with this. He's actually lost the robotics facility in a couple of gateways too, but MMA still working off 3 command centers, so can actually maybe recover this. He hasn't lost that many SCVs either, but still, the Immortals are just going to do so much damage here.
Yeah, it's whether or not he can kill the Immortals, really, isn't it? He's got to back off just a little bit, because he's taking a lot of fire. A nice, very nice concave here. Oh, he's going to lose one Immortal, and MMA is actually holding this. Both of these guys ripping chunks out of each other at the moment. There's only 2 Marauders left on that natural versus a couple of Zealots and the Pros, but this army from Mana has actually been sent home with its tail between its legs. But I just want to point out what the SCV count is.
Yeah, it's really, really low. 8 now. These 2 Marauders kiting everything that Mana has. He can't actually afford to build a Stalker, and even if he does build a single one, it's going to get shut down as well.
The army's coming home now, though, so
yeah.
That's going to be it for this little attacking force here, and it's doing as much damage as it can, but even with mules, it's 8 SCVs.
Versus 35 and Chrono Boost, full Chrono Boost, may I add, because he couldn't actually spend it on anything. He didn't have any money, so he's now Chrono Boosting into probes. He's going to hit that 50 mark, 2 base saturation so incredibly fast here. And Mana doesn't need to go out. I was going to say, get the hell back on that natural, because if you take damage from drops again, you could lose this game. But if he moves out, then he, of course, is going to be out of position. But if he's sitting on his natural and ready to build in the main, he's absolutely fine now. He's looking at 72 supply versus 40. And finally, the command center goes down for MMA, but he's still at 8 SCVs. He's now building from 3 orbital commands. We'll have 3 sets of mules to try to crawl back, but mules are good, but they're not that good.
No, they are not under any circumstances. And Mana, one of his qualities is his patience. He is not an impetuous player. He's not going to throw himself at MMA like, I could beat MMA. Let's keep throwing ourselves and then bleed yourself out on MMA's defenses. He's not going to do that. He is going to get his army back in shape. He's going to make sure his economy is great. He has got so much Chrono Boost available here. I'm actually very surprised he's not using it to Chrono Boost out probes. He's putting down double Forge here.
Ooh, yeah, I was actually going to say, I wonder if he'll just throw down the robotics, but I was actually hoping he would do, and then just use every single bit of Chrono Boost in it and go with like 2 or 3 Colossus and just end the game. But he actually does, well, he decides to throw double Forge and the robotics
there
down,
it is.
So doing a bit of both, but he doesn't really have gas to do everything at the moment, especially if he wants to keep the unit count high. But I guess that he does have a decent amount of units anyway, so he can just throw the gas in double upgrades and Colossus. But that's actually fine to do here. And he's just sitting back, taking the passive option here, like we saw MMA do in game number 2. And it's like, alright, I'm this far ahead, I'm just going to sit back. If Mana tries to expand, though, he will spread himself out too thin, I feel, especially by upgrading twice here, or kind of teching up twice. So he's got to be careful, though. It's not a 1 game yet.
No, it's not. Definitely not. Against a player of the caliber of MMA, absolutely not. MMA is now on 26 SCVs from 8, and also has like 4 mules on the field. So his triple command center has certainly helped him out a lot here. Now we've got Mana pushing out, looking to try and take an engagement somewhere, warping in additional reinforcements. His army is only slightly larger, but it does have Immortals in it, so that's perhaps the biggest deal. Upgrade count-wise, MMA has a very slight edge in terms of that +1.
And he's building Vikings, actually knowing that Colossus is coming without seeing it. Very smart by MMA. Drop comes into the main base too. I wonder what Mana's going to do. Is he just going to go for it? It looks like he is. 1-1, not quite completed yet. And this is a very defensive posture for MMA. Oh, Mana, please don't throw this away.
Yeah, he could. He very well could. He's not responding well to that drop at all. He warped in 2 Stalkers that were killed pretty much instantly, and not a good choice there. The bunker is being repaired quite nicely here as well. Force fields now deployed. A lot of force fields used to take out that single bunker. Mana's got to be incredibly careful with how he takes this, because that Nexus is almost down. There is now a Colossus up, so at least that saves the Nexus, but a lot of economic damage had been dealt there. And honestly, MMA could hold this again, while Mana can actually contain this natural here. Certainly, MMA is going to hold here, and the killing blow will not be delivered.
Yeah, and Mana can now defend with the Colossus, or second Colossus that's coming out. He hasn't got a Twilight Council because he's lost a lot of mining time there, so he can't actually work on 2-2, but 1-1 is actually fine for this situation. We actually see MMA at 1-1 as well, so upgrades are balanced out. Single Colossus is going to sit back and defend, I suppose, while the other one goes out and is aggressive here, but he's going to lose the Nexus.
Oh, that is going to be a nasty blow for him there, and it's just the fact that he can't mine those 2 gas. That's the most vital thing. Down goes the drop, so a nice pickup there, but not being able to mine those 2 gas for the longest time is going to severely limit the number of Colossi that are going to come out here, and it looks like Mana's going to try and push again. He doesn't know about this 3rd base that's being deployed. A good decision there to put the factory down to create a partial wall-off so that those Zealots can't get in there, but... Well, will Mana actually go around the side? It looks like he's going to go for it, and he will end up seeing and killing off, potentially, this 3rd base.
Yeah,
no, he doesn't do it.
Oh, he should do, though. I mean, that's his attack path will be to the 3rd base, then to the natural, so he's definitely going to go there, and MMA could actually lose this. Mana is expanding again to a more mineral-heavy expansion, of course, because he's mined so much from his main, but...
Yep.
There's 2 Colossus, there's 4 Vikings, though, with a 5th one building. I think that Mana's army's just too big for MMA to deal with now.
Oh, that Orbital Command's on 50 HP as well. He actually lets it live, and the repair's going to come in on time. He goes in again with this aggression with 2 Colossus, and only 2 Vikings to bring that down. The first Colossus isn't going to fall quick enough, I feel. This may be the killing blow coming in here. MMA holds this, it will be absolutely stellar, and it's not looking like he's going to be able to with that much firepower coming down. MMA's got a great position here, but oh, the supply count is plummeting. That Colossus is not going down either, and MMA will, of course, continue to fight on here, but he's going to lose that, and there is the GG. Mana defeats MMA in a sensational series.
Wow, oh my god, I can't believe that he managed to turn that around. Not really turn it around, but go on to win the 3rd game after dropping the 2nd. Mana, man, he's very, very good against Terran, but MMA...
Best PBT in Europe.
MMA 2-1 now in his group, and this is shaping up to be another very fascinating group here, and nobody would have expected MMA to drop that series.
No, unless, of course, they were big Mana fans and believed what we believe, which is godlike PVT. It really is. Nobody should argue with that, and that's the reason he was able to do that. And he was caught out in Game 2 by that really wonky Banshee timing, and MMA holds really nicely for a while in Game 3, but takes so much damage in the process. You know, it always shows his fighting spirit that he's willing to continue on 8 SCVs and actually get back into the game there, but... I feel that it was only a matter of time, even though those drops were so effective by MMA, it was just like pecking at Mana, and Mana just, it's annoying to him, but he really doesn't care all that much.
And MMA dropping this game has kind of put his tournament life in jeopardy here, because
it has.
He's 2-1, and his last game is against Stefano. And Stefano's, of course, very good against Terran. And if Stefano manages to pick that win up on our next show, then MMA could actually be out here. So this is very, very awkward, because MMA, especially leading 2-0 after show number 1 here, this is pretty crazy.
It is very crazy. Not to mention, he dropped a map against Life as well. Are we going to see another situation where map score really determines things? Ooh, it was a good start for MMA, but now, his final game against Stefano. Stefano was no pushover and has beaten MMA before.
Yes, he has. So it's more than capable to. So we're not going to see any more of MMA today, though. We're going to have to save that MMA versus Stefano for our next show on Wednesday. But we are going to be seeing Mana's second Protoss versus Terran later on, where he could actually flip everything around here and actually turn around 2-1 if he manages to beat Jack G. Can he beat 2 GSL champions, though? Can he? That's going to be the difficult question.
It will. We will find out, though, without question. And Jack G fans, you're going to be seeing quite a bit of him coming up after this break. Don't go anywhere.